Hey everybody, welcome back to the studio. Well, in today's video, I want to address, I like the term, so I'm going to say it. I want to address the elephant in the room. I want to address how you learn your photography, how you learn Photoshop, how you learn different things. And I think you'll understand as I get into it. But let me start with how I learned photography. I started back in the mid-'80s. I actually started photography while I was living in a place called Waterton Lakes National Park. A girl that actually worked with me had just finished a photography degree at Ryerson. And I got an interest in photography a few years before, but didn't really do much with it. And then after talking to her, I decided that I wanted to get into photography. But I didn't want to get into the degree from an educational place. I wanted to get more into doing the nature and the wildlife things. So I looked at taking different classes and so on and so forth. And at that time, there was very little. But there was something called books and magazines, something that many people today have no idea what they are. But there was tons of those out there. So you could read books on how to take better pictures. You could read books on this and that and the other thing, lighting or whatever. And you could get magazines that would have articles in it by some industry experts. And there were some amazing people out there that were sharing their knowledge. So I would get these magazines and I would read these articles on how to take better wildlife pictures. And I would try to do what they said in the articles. And more times than not, the articles were misleading. Now, were they deliberately misleading? No. They were misleading in the sense that they shared their information, but they didn't share everything because they just plain and simply didn't think of sharing that. Or it wasn't important to share because, well, looking back, I can see how they would assume that people reading the articles would know this stuff. And a lot of the stuff that I read and other people, I talked to people and everything, it just left us more confused. Well, jump ahead to now. Jump ahead to where people learn their photography online on, YouTube videos. And I still see the same thing. In fact, just yesterday, I had a young couple come into my studio. We got talking about this and that and the other thing, and they were mentioning that they were trying to learn Photoshop online. But it was frustrating, and I just sort of smiled and nodded. And I see so many people at my classes and my workshops with the same problems. Now, why is the same problem still happening today that happened back then? Well, it's because if you try to learn from books, if you try to learn from magazine articles, if you try to learn from blogs or YouTube videos, a lot of the stuff is assumed that you already know. Somebody will be talking about something in Photoshop, for instance, and they'll say, in order to clone this, you do this, this, and this. Well, that's great if your Photoshop program is set up like that. But if your Photoshop program is not set up like theirs, you can't do those steps. Likewise in photography. I see so many times people out there, and I'm talking about the good ones, not the ones that are just doing videos just to get more likes and get more subscribers so they can make money. I'm talking about the people who are actually sharing information. I'll see a video and I'll go, hey, this looks like a good video. I want to watch it. So as I've said many times, I have videos playing a lot of times on computers when I'm doing stuff here in the studio because it's a boring thing to just send stuff to a printer to trim stuff. So I'll listen to these videos. And I'll listen to a video and they'll say, when I do, let's say, lightning photography, I do this, this, and this. And I go, no, that makes sense. But then I think about somebody who's watching that same video that doesn't know that they use a tripod for their pictures, or doesn't know how to set their cameras ISO, or how to set their cameras this, or that you should be using manual focus, not autofocus. But the person talking about it doesn't explain that because they figure that the person's going to know this. And I get that so many times when I'm doing a class. They say, well, I heard this. And it's like, yep, that's true. But why doesn't it work? Well, are you doing this also? And they look at me and they sort of, no. And that's a big problem. So if you're learning stuff online, understand that you're only learning bits and pieces. It's not necessarily everything. If you've learned something online, if you watched a video, read a blog, if you've read a magazine, if you've read an ebook or listened to an audiobook, understand that many of these people aren't trying to deceive you. They're not trying to leave stuff out. It's just that, well, we don't think about it. Even in my classes, we'll be talking about something. Somebody will ask a question and I'll be addressing something. And then they say, but how did you do that to begin with? And I go, oh, you didn't know how to do that. That's where your problem's coming from. And many times when people pick up a camera, I've had people actually tell me they're a professional photographer. And I look at their camera settings and they're using it on full auto. And I ask them stuff about ISO, about shutter speed, about aperture. And they look at me and go, what? What's that? And when I started explaining to them, they go, I didn't know about that. I was told to be a professional photographer. All I had to do was buy this camera and lens. And yes, I'm simplifying it. But I get stuff like that constantly. So understand, if you're going to learn from any different source, that you're probably not getting everything. I strongly recommend taking a class, a workshop, learning online. Like I've said before, I mentor people online. I teach people online. And they'll have some really good information. And then they'll ask me a question. I go, oh, there's your problem. That's why you're not making money. That's why you're not getting good pictures. That's why you're frustrated with this. That explains everything. So a one-way conversation, but just listening, just reading, doesn't get you all the information. So if you want the information, get a one-on-one sessions, talk to people, go to camera clubs, take classes, ask questions. Don't assume that what you've watched online is true. Check it out first before you actually delve into it, and make sure that what you're learning is the real thing. So until next time, it's a beautiful day here in Southern Alberta. It's actually 23 degrees, and I'm about to go out and open my outside door to let some fresh air in, and then I have some pictures I have to take in the studio. So enjoy your day, get out there and take some amazing pictures, and we'll talk to you next time. Bye-bye now.